I didn't catch my wife in bed. I heard her name in my office like it was nothing, and my whole body understood the truth before my mind did. My name is David Reynolds. I manage an insurance team, 12 people, steady numbers, steady expectations. I'm the guy who keeps things from catching fire. I've always been proud of that. Melissa Reynolds and I had been married long enough that people stopped asking how we met and started saying things like, "You two are the real deal." Nearly 3 decades of showing up, paying bills, keeping our name clean, and making a home that didn't feel like a battlefield. We weren't loud. We weren't flashy. We were reliable. That's what everyone saw. What they didn't see was the shape our love took over time. It wasn't poems and surprise trips. It was me replacing the porch light before it flickered out. It was making sure her car had gas on Sunday night because I knew she hated stopping in the morning. It was memorizing how she took her coffee even when she changed it. Cream for a month, then black when she was being good, then back to cream when life got heavy. I remembered things because remembering is a form of respect. I kept routines because routines made her feel safe. I locked the doors at night. I handled the insurance renewals, the taxes, the small emergencies that could turn into big ones if you ignored them. I fixed what broke. I apologized when I was wrong. I didn't wander. I didn't flirt. I didn't keep secrets. We hosted holidays. We sent cards. We sat through school plays and graduations. We raised Lauren and Ryan into adults who knew what stability looked like. Melissa and I had inside jokes, shared history, the kind of shorthand that comes from years of being the same team. At least that's what I believed we were. I won't lie and pretend it was all sparks. Romance doesn't survive on autopilot. Some nights we watched TV and fell asleep like roommates who happened to share a last name. Some mornings we talked about groceries instead of dreams. But I thought that was normal. I thought love could mature into something quieter and still be real. People assumed we'd last forever because we looked like we had. And because I was the kind of man who didn't quit. I didn't know comfort had started to take up the space where desire used to live. I didn't know Melissa had begun to notice the silence in ways I wasn't. Back then, if you'd asked me what could break our marriage, I would have shrugged and said, "Nothing." I meant it. And that's what made what came next feel like a hit I never saw coming. It didn't start with a fight. That's what people get wrong. They picture screaming, slammed doors, some obvious fracture you could point to like a cracked beam in a house. With Melissa, it started with a look in the mirror. Little changes, harmless on paper, new moisturizer on the bathroom counter, a different perfume, something brighter that didn't smell like wife, as much as it smelled like woman. She began taking longer to get ready for work, standing in front of the closet like the clothes had betrayed her. "Just tired of the same stuff," she said once, holding up a blouse like it offended her. I laughed. "You've got 100 outfits." She gave me a tight smile. "Exactly." Then the gym. Not just I should be healthier, but a sudden seriousness, new leggings, new shoes, tracking apps. She'd come home flushed and energized in a way I hadn't seen in years, like someone had plugged her back into a socket. At first I was glad. I told her she looked good. I meant it. I put my hand on her waist when she walked past, and she didn't always lean into it the way she used to. Not pulling away exactly, more like not noticing. She started talking about finding herself. I heard that phrase so many times it became background noise. "I don't want to just be a mom and a wife," she said one night while we cleaned up after dinner. "You haven't been just anything," I told her. "You've always done a lot." She nodded like she agreed, but her eyes didn't match her head. Her eyes were somewhere else, measuring a life I couldn't see. There were moments that should have registered. Comments about younger couples at restaurants. The way she'd watch them hold hands like it was a performance she'd forgotten her lines for. "Remember when we used to do that?" she asked once. "We still can," I said, and reached for her hand. She let me take it, but it felt like I was grabbing something she'd already let go of. Compliments started to hit her differently, too. A cashier saying, "Love your hair," and Melissa would light up like she'd been starving and someone tossed her a piece of bread. She'd mention it later, casual, but with this strange brightness. "Can you believe she said that?" she'd say, like she'd just been seen for the first time. I didn't understand the hunger behind it. I thought I was doing my job, steady, loyal, present. I thought being a good husband was enough because it always had been. That's the trap. You don't notice the shift when it's slow. You don't notice when someone starts collecting validation like it's oxygen. Because from the outside it looks like confidence. And I trusted her. Trust was my default setting. Melissa was my wife. Melissa was the person who knew my routines, my weaknesses, my quiet pride. I believed we had the kind of marriage where you didn't have to watch the door. Meanwhile, she was standing closer and closer to the edge, looking out like the life we built was a cage instead of a foundation. And I was still inside, making sure the lights worked. The Denver conference was supposed to be boring. Melissa packed like it was a vacation, new dress, new heels, the brighter perfume. I didn't think much of it. She worked hard. She earned the right to feel sharp. "Don't work too late," she said, kissing my cheek at the door. "I never do," I told her. And I didn't. The first night she texted like normal. Hotel food complaints. A picture of the skyline. Little updates that said, "See? Nothing to worry about." I replied with my usual steady stuff. "Miss you. Be safe. Call if you need anything." The second night, the rhythm changed. Shorter messages. Delayed replies. "Long day," she wrote. "Going to bed early." I remember looking at that text and feeling nothing more than mild appreciation. Responsible. Resting. That's what a good woman does on a work trip, right? What I didn't know was that someone had noticed her. Not the way I noticed her. Familiar, respectful, domestic. The new way. The hungry way that makes a person feel 25 again. A colleague, she'd tell me later, like that word made it cleaner. A man at the conference who leaned in closer than necessary, who laughed too hard at her jokes, who made her feel like her body still mattered. One night of attention, then another. A drink turned into two. A hand on her lower back as they walked. A line crossed that taught her something dangerous. She could lie and still sound like herself. After Denver, the phone became a private object. Face down. The screen dimmed. A password change she brushed off with company policy. They're cracking down. New habits formed fast. Bathroom trips with the phone. Notifications muted. Smiling at messages she didn't share. "What's funny?" I asked once, casual. "Just a meme," she said, and slid the phone away like it was hot. I didn't press. I was still operating on trust. I was still the man who believed in stable things. Melissa labeled it a mistake in her own head, one bad choice on a trip, a moment of feeling alive. But mistakes don't usually come with planning. They don't usually come with deleted threads and hidden notifications. That one night didn't end when she came home. It followed her. It grew legs. It taught her how to split her life into two clean lanes. One for me, one for whatever she was chasing. And once a person learns how to live like that, the door doesn't close on its own. After Denver, it didn't go back to normal. It got organized. Melissa didn't act guilty in the way people expect. No shaking hands, no weeping apologies. She acted efficient, like she'd added a second job and was learning the schedule. There were last-minute meetings that showed up out of nowhere. "Client dinner," she'd say, already halfway to the closet. "Networking thing. Training session." Always something that sounded professional enough to question, but petty enough to make you feel stupid for questioning it. Her calendar became sacred. Her phone was always on her, even in the house. If she left it on the counter and walked away, she'd come back like she'd forgotten a wallet full of cash. Passwords changed, then changed again. Her laptop used to sit open on the kitchen table while she cooked. Now it snapped shut the second I entered the room, like my presence was a threat. I stayed the same. That was the strangest part. I still packed her lunch sometimes if I was up early. Still brought home the brand of tea she liked without asking. Still fixed the loose cabinet hinge and swapped out the air filter and paid attention to the small things because that's what I did. I was steady on purpose. I thought steadiness was love. And the kinder I was, the more distant she got. Like my consistency trapped her in a story she didn't want to be in anymore. Like my reliability made her look at herself and feel guilty, so she needed a reason, a justification to keep doing what she was doing. That's how she started telling it, I found out later. Not, I'm betraying my husband, but I deserve to feel alive. Not, I'm lying, but I need space. Not, I'm cheating, but I'm figuring myself out. There were signs. In hindsight, they're everywhere. She began arriving home with a different energy, like she'd already spent her warmth somewhere else. Sometimes she'd come back too cheerful, overcompensating, bringing me something small from the store like a bribe. Sometimes she came back flat, annoyed by my normal questions. How was your day? I'd ask. Fine, she'd say like it was a chore. Then the disappearing time. 10 minutes became an hour. Traffic, she'd say. My phone died. Excuses that didn't match the woman I'd known for decades. But when you've built a life on trust, you don't want to become the man who interrogates his wife over minutes. And that's the quiet cruelty of it. Being trusted is a privilege. She used it like a weapon. What started as one secret became a structure, repeatable, sustainable. A system that let her live two lives while I kept protecting one. I was in the same house, sleeping beside her some nights, thinking we were just going through a dull patch. She wasn't going through a patch. She was building a door I didn't know existed, and learning how to walk through it without leaving footprints. Ethan Parker was 22, maybe 23. Smart kid. Eager. The kind of intern who showed up early and asked real questions instead of pretending he already knew everything. I liked mentoring him. Felt clean. Simple. Work was the part of my life that still made sense. One afternoon we were alone in the small conference room. Nothing formal, just me walking him through a client renewal process. He kept messing up one detail and getting frustrated with himself. Relax, I told him. You're here to learn, not impress. He exhaled, laughed nervously, and leaned back in his chair like his body didn't know what to do with calm. We finished the training, and as we packed up, he lingered. Not in a lazy way. Something's on my mind. You ever? He started, then stopped, rubbing his palm on his jeans. You ever do something stupid and it kind of messes with you after? I looked at him. That's most of being human, Ethan. He gave a weak smile. Yeah, I guess. He hesitated again, then said it like he was ripping off a bandage. I dated a married woman for a while. Last year. The air in the room shifted. Not because of him, because of the word married. I kept my face neutral. Manager mode. That's not great. I know. His ears went red. I didn't know at first. She told me later. I should have walked. But she made it sound like her marriage was basically over. Like he didn't even see her. I didn't say anything. I let him talk. People confess when you give them quiet. She was older, he added quickly. Like he needed me to understand he wasn't chasing someone his age. Not like old, just older. How much older? I asked, still calm, like it was curiosity. 40s, mid-40s. He swallowed. Professional. Worked in, operations. I travel for conferences sometimes. My stomach tightened, but I stayed still. He kept going, eyes on the table now. She had this polished thing, like she knew how to make you feel wanted. And then she'd switch and get cold if I asked questions. I felt a strange pressure in my chest. The details were stacking up in a shape I didn't want. What was her name? I asked. He flinched like he didn't want to say it. Then he did anyway, casually, because to him it was just a story about his mistake. Melissa. The room went quiet in a way that didn't feel like silence. Felt like the world was stepping back. I didn't move. I don't know how long I sat there with my hands on the table, staring at a spot near his notebook like if I focused hard enough I could make the word untrue. Ethan kept talking, filling the space, unaware of the damage. Melissa something. I can't remember her last name. She worked at. I held up a hand. Not aggressive. Just final. Stop. He froze. What? I looked at him, and I could feel my face turn cold. Not angry yet. Not loud. Just empty. Where did you meet her? I asked. He blinked. At this networking thing. She was at a conference. Denver, actually. Denver. My throat tightened. My body understood before my mind finished catching up. I stood up slowly, chair legs scraping the floor. Ethan watched me like he'd finally realized something was wrong but couldn't name it. "Ethan," I said, voice steady, "I need you to tell me everything you remember, and I need you to do it carefully." He nodded, confused and scared, and while he spoke, piece by piece, my life rearranged itself into a shape I didn't recognize. Because the truth didn't arrive like a detective story. No shadowy photos. No dramatic reveal. It arrived like a casual sentence from a kid who didn't know he'd just put a knife in my ribs. I drove home like a man transporting a glass of water. Slow, careful, refusing to spill anything I couldn't put back. At red lights, my hands stayed on the wheel. 10 and 2. Muscle memory. The kind of discipline you fall back on when your brain is trying to tear itself apart. I kept hearing it, Melissa, Denver. Not accusations. Not theories. Details. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. Porch light on. Curtains drawn. Our life pretending it was still ours. Melissa was in the kitchen when I walked in. Standing at the counter. Phone in her hand like it belonged there. She looked up and smiled, normal, practiced, automatic. "Hey," she said. "You're home a little late." I set my keys down gently, took off my coat, hung it the way I always did. "Yeah," I said. "Had a conversation at work." She went back to her phone, thumb moving. Too fast. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pace. I just stood there, steady, and watched her like I was seeing her for the first time. "Melissa," I said. She looked up again, still casual. "What?" "I met someone today," I said. "Ethan Parker." Her face didn't change at first. Then something. A small freeze behind her eyes, like a file drawer slamming shut. "Who?" she asked, too quick. I held my gaze on her. "My intern." She swallowed. Her smile didn't come back right away. "Okay?" I nodded once. "He told me about a married woman he dated. A woman named Melissa." The room went still. Even the refrigerator hum felt loud. Melissa blinked, then tried to laugh. "That's David, come on. Lots of women are named Melissa." I didn't move. "Denver," I said. "Conference. Operations. Mid-40s. Her phone slipped in her grip and she caught it before it hit the counter. That little fumble told me more than any confession could. "Stop," she whispered, like she was talking to herself. I stepped closer, not threatening, just unavoidable. "Is it you?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes went glossy, but not with sadness. More like panic. Calculation. "No," she said, but it came out weak, already dying. I waited. Silence does work when you don't flinch from it. Her shoulders sagged. The phone lowered, and the truth finally walked into the room. "It was a mistake," she said. "It was one time. I don't know. I felt invisible. I was confused." I nodded slowly, like I was acknowledging a weather report. "Was it just him?" She looked at me, and in that second I saw her try to choose the version of reality that hurt her least. Her mouth tightened. Her eyes flicked away. "No," she said. One word. That was all it took. Not a scream. Not a shattered plate. Just the quiet collapse of everything I thought I knew. I stared at her, and the strangest thing happened. My anger didn't explode. Condensed. Because pleading doesn't fix what someone chose to break. And in that moment, I stopped being her husband in my head. I became a man making decisions. I slept in the guest room that night. Not to punish her. Not to make a statement. I just couldn't share air with her and pretend it meant the same thing it did yesterday. Melissa hovered in doorways like she wanted permission to rewrite what happened. "David," she said softly, like softness could undo it. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up from the ceiling. "We did. I didn't mean for it to." I turned my head then, finally. Not with rage. With something colder. "You didn't mean for me to find out." She went quiet. That was the closest thing to honesty in the room. In the morning I moved like a machine. Shower. Shave. Clothes. I pulled a duffel from the closet and packed it without rushing. Documents first. Passport. Birth certificate. Social security card. Financial statements. Anything that mattered enough to become a weapon later if I left it behind. Melissa followed me, barefoot, eyes red, wearing the same robe she always wore on lazy weekends. The image was almost insulting, our normal life draped over a stranger. "Where are you going?" she asked. "A hotel," I said. "That's dramatic." I paused at the front door and looked at her. "You built a second life. Don't talk to me about drama." Her mouth opened, then shut. No comeback. Just that wounded look people wear when consequences finally arrive. My phone lit up with messages the moment I left the driveway. "Please come back. We need to talk. You're overreacting." I was lonely. It didn't mean anything. It meant something because it happened. She tried every angle: soft, defensive, guilty, romantic, practical. Like she was cycling through versions of herself, hoping one would still have access to me. At the hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the carpet. The room smelled like cheap detergent and stale air. Perfect. Nothing in it had history. I barely slept. My brain kept trying to negotiate, like if it found the right logic I could go back to being the man I was last week. But there was no negotiation. Only facts. So I forced myself into motion. I called a lawyer that morning. Calm voice. Simple request. Appointment scheduled. I opened a new bank account. I changed passwords. I documented what I needed to document. I didn't spy, didn't scream, didn't beg. I didn't give her a stage. That's what people don't understand about dignity. It isn't loud. It isn't speeches and grand exits. It's movement. Melissa kept texting. Long messages now. Emotional essays that turned her choices into weather. She wanted to talk like adults. As if adults betray each other and then hold hands through the cleanup. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have words. Because silence was the only boundary that worked when someone had already proven they'd step over anything else. Lauren found out first. She called me because she could hear something in my voice the day I told her I'd moved out. My daughter has always had that instinct. She hears the space between words. "Dad," she said, careful. "What happened?" I didn't dress it up. I didn't dump it on her either. I just told the truth like a man reporting damage. "Your mother's been unfaithful," I said. "More than once. I'm filing for divorce." There was a long silence, then a shaky inhale. "Are you serious?" "I wouldn't say it if I wasn't." Her voice broke, not in a dramatic way, just a quiet fracture. "I don't understand. Mom wouldn't." "She did," I said. "I'm sorry you have to carry it." Lauren cried. Not loud, just breathing through pain. She asked questions I couldn't answer because the only real answer was, "Your mother made choices." Ryan took it differently. When I told him, he went quiet and stayed there. "My son has never been a performer. He processes things like steel cooling." "So she threw it away," he finally said. I didn't correct him. He didn't ask for details. He didn't need them. Disappointment can be its own language. Melissa tried to control the divorce the same way she controlled everything else. Fast, clean, minimized. "I just want to keep the house," she said when we finally spoke through lawyers and short, necessary calls. "Let's not drag this out. The house, the place we raised them, the walls that held decades of photographs and holidays and routines. I could have fought for it out of principle, could have made it ugly, but I didn't want to win a building. I wanted to lose a tie, so I agreed to a fair buyout. Not generous, not petty, fair. I wanted clean numbers and a clean exit. The separation turned practical fast. Accounts, assets, paperwork, a life reduced to lines on a spreadsheet. People think that part is cold. It isn't. It's heavy in a different way because the more you sign, the more real it becomes. The day the divorce finalized, we sat in a quiet room with quiet people. No speeches, no closure, just signatures that ended a history. Melissa looked like she wanted to say something meaningful, something that would soften her own memory of what she'd done. I didn't give her the moment. I signed. I stood. I nodded once, polite, distant, final. Outside, the air felt sharp and clean. Lauren and Ryan didn't celebrate. They didn't pick sides in a childish way. They just adjusted. They learned something about their mother they hadn't wanted to know. They learned something about me too, that I wasn't going to burn down the world, but I also wasn't going to pretend. And that's what the divorce really was. Not drama. Consequences. Cleanly applied. 3 years is enough time for the shock to fade and the truth to settle into your bones. I didn't rebuild with some dramatic reinvention. I moved into a small apartment that didn't echo with old memories. Clean place. Simple furniture. Nothing that belonged to us. At first it felt like exile. Then it started to feel like peace. Weekends I joined groups, hiking, a local volunteer crew that fixed up trails, a Saturday coffee meetup where people talked about anything but the past. It wasn't therapy talk. It was motionless. Fresh air. New faces. Proof that life kept going if you kept showing up. That's where I met Rachel Miller. Nurse. Calm eyes. No interest in games. She had her own scars and didn't advertise them. We started slowly. Real conversations. Real boundaries, no rush to pretend we were something we weren't. Rachel didn't need me to perform. She noticed things without demanding them. She'd touch my arm when she laughed, then let go without trying to claim me. The first time she asked how my day was, she actually waited for the answer. Being seen like that after betrayal does something to a man. It doesn't make you soft. It makes you clear. One afternoon, we stopped at a pharmacy. My granddaughter was with us. Little ponytail, tiny hand in mine, asking for a snack like she owned the world. Rachel was smiling at her, patient and warm. And that's when I saw Melissa. She was near the greeting cards, holding a basket, turning her head like she felt a shift in the air. Her eyes landed on me and locked. The surprise hit first. Then the scan, Rachel, the child, the way I stood. I watched her face do something I recognized from years ago. The scramble to regain control of a moment that wasn't hers. David, she said, stepping closer, voice too careful. Hi, Melissa, I replied, neutral, polite, like a distant coworker. Rachel didn't squeeze my hand. She didn't need to. She just stayed beside me, steady. Melissa's eyes flicked to my granddaughter. She's? My granddaughter, I said. A pause. Anne, this is Rachel, I said, introducing her the way you introduce the present to the past. Rachel nodded once. Hi. Melissa tried to smile, but it didn't land. Her gaze kept returning to me, like she was looking for the version of me she used to have access to. I didn't know you were, she started. I'm doing well, I said, calm and final, before she could shape it into a conversation. She swallowed. I'm glad. I nodded once. Take care. That was it. No revenge speech. No satisfaction parade. Just a clean ending in the middle of a pharmacy aisle. Melissa stood there with a basket in her hand, watching a life that used to be hers walk past her without looking back. And I didn't feel triumph. I felt something better. Relief. Because you don't always get revenge. Sometimes you just get your life back. And that calm becomes the final answer they can't argue with.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.